Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Comic Book Weekly. And guys, not a lot of news this week, but I think we're going to still have some fun anyway. Guys, I am Mike Spiderslayer from the YouTube channel Comic Book Corner 2.0. Hello everybody, and of course, we have Brant Fowler here.
What's up, everybody?
And then we also have the famous Cat Comic Uno, who was just telling us that she's got 5,000 followers over on Twitter.
I was just telling them to actually just brag, really. I was like,
Yeah.
guys, guess what? 5,000 Twitter followers. We were thinking of maybe using StreamYard for Twitter, so we'll see if that comes to fruition or not. But yeah, we are here. Like Mike said, there's not a lot of news to talk about, so we're gonna fly to the news, and maybe you guys could ask us questions along the way. We might talk about Venom 2. We're gonna talk about some Random House stuff. But first up, we are going to discuss the little news we have. So the Book of Boba Fett gets a premiere date. It's in December. So I'm not watching any Star Wars stuff. So this is for Brant and Mike.
I'm excited about this, especially the way the Mandalorian ended with that little tease for this. It's got me excited for it. I'm all in for this. I love Mandalorian, so
Yeah, me too. I mean, honestly, though, like, I thought Mandalorian the next season would come out before that. So I was
yeah,
kind of surprised when I saw this news. I was like, oh shit. I'm like, this is coming out before the next season of Mandalorian. And then I'm like, and it's coming out in December. Like, I'm kind of shocked at that it's coming out like really soon because
yeah,
it's kind of quick announcement. You think you would have heard something like earlier about that, right?
right, yeah. I had no idea. I knew this was coming. I thought it was like in the future, like you. So it's crazy that it's already here. But I mean, Star Wars at Christmas time, that's cool with me, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So next up, and I just canceled on my sheets here, but the next thing is media news as well. Scarlett Johansson and Disney settle the Black Widow lawsuit. So all the people who thought, man, this is going to be such a big case for media, it's not. And I believe she's going to be in Twilight Zone. So she's now still friends with Disney. So I guess stuff happened behind the scenes, which, I mean, it's good for her that things were able to be worked out. But I think it's a shame that things aren't fully being worked out for everybody. And these things are still happening. But hopefully, it's a lesson to be learned. I don't know if it will be, but hopefully it will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not really much else to say about
Yeah,
that,
I
right?
mean,
Go
good
ahead,
for
Mike.
her that she got it worked
Yeah.
out. And it's just like, I think it was wise to them to work it out with her because
Yeah.
she's still probably obviously going to be part. Well, we already said it that she's going to be part of Disney, and you don't know what else she could be possibly in the future. And you don't want to risk her walking off altogether. So, obviously she's a valuable asset to him, and she only deserves what she should get. I mean, she worked hard. She's just because a pandemic happened, that's not her fault.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So it'll be really interesting to see how things move forward. So now we're getting to some comic news, and this was announced, I think, today, because I think it's going to be the most recent Champions book, but the book's ending, which, I don't think any of us were reading it, but because, it hasn't really been on par to previous volumes, and I think it's a shame that they haven't been able to get this series right. I would say since the beginning, I feel like this had a very hard beginning, and then we had a good middle, and then the end it also continued just not to know where it landed because of the whole outlawed event and obviously COVID, and it not really fleshed out that outlawed event. So I think it's a shame, especially a lot of these characters don't have their own series, so we won't be seeing a lot of these characters again, at least for the time being.
Yeah, I was reading this series up until a few issues ago, several issues ago. I don't even know how long ago it was now. But yeah, it kind of suffered from still continuing that story from Outlawed and the stuff with Roxxon and that whole thing, the social media thing. And it got into this trap of just prolonging this story that nobody cared about, I think. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the writing was kind of on the wall with it.
Yeah, it was just it was horrible timing. It just unfortunate, and no one cared about it, and it's just like, who cares? the first series that they had, the original Champion series. I think that was really good. I think the concept of the champion team, I think, is really good.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't need this whole outlawed thing attached to it. I thought that story in itself has already been done in Civil War, and you were just doing it basically in a kid version, you know?
Yeah. I also don't think they needed to expand the cast as wide as they did. Like that one arc had them bring in like 50 people. I mean, it's literally like a Junior Avengers kind of thing. And
yeah, exactly.
then
I think
everybody
the original people, like, what was it? Like Miles, Nova, Carmella, who else was in
Viv,
that?
right?
What's that?
Was Viv?
Riri.
Yeah,
I
Viv
think
was
Riri
in
was
there.
in it.
Who?
Riri.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah, Riri,
All right,
yeah.
Ironheart, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
And,
when you have those few people, I think it's fine. But then when you had, like, yeah, like you said, you had that whole like expansion, like this extended universe version of them, or like
Yeah.
Justice League Unlimited version of them. It's just like it just
That's when
didn't
I
work.
dropped off. Yeah, I was not a fan of that because they just didn't focus on those characters. I agree.
Exactly. The scope became too big, and it became more about the plot than the characters, and that's kind of where it fell off. Yeah.
Cyclops was on the team. Tevia reminds us. Yeah, Cyclops,
Oh, yeah.
the young Cyclops was on the original
Right.
team.
Yeah.
So moving on to, I think, the bigger news piece of the week, especially because there's only 4. But Steve Orlando is taking over Marauders, so it's not being canceled, but it is maybe being renumbered. Who knows? And also, Emma Frost is not on the team. They actually have a new roster. So let me pull that up. Kitty Pryde's still the lead of it. You got Dawkin and Psylocke. It looks like Bishop, Aurora, and Tempo. So they're replacing the whole entire team.
Wow.
In this one. So I don't know how to feel about that. I feel like the whole point of the book was Emma and Kitty. I mean, I'm a huge fan, so I'm still going to read it.
Psylocke on the team because Hellions is being canceled, right? So you do that.
I wonder if that means X Factor is going away too, because that's where Dawkins is right now.
X Factor is done.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, it was just Trial of Magneto is like an extension of that.
Yeah,
but that book is no longer in existence either.
Gotcha.
So, but that's a shame though that Emma's not in it.
Mm-hmm.
I think she needs to be somewhere. And I don't know.
Might have a bigger role somewhere else.
Well, maybe she'll have a more prominent role in the X-Men title, in the main X-Men title. Yeah. That book, though, definitely needs something because we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, like that whole story arc with the whole Reaver situation, and then this whole thing with them wound up going in space and dealing with that Han Solo situation. Like, it just seems like that something was missing, and it was true because Jerry Duggan's focusing on that X-Men title, and he just doesn't have, the same passion for that book anymore. So you need to put somebody else in there.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to give it a shot, and I hope, like you just said, Mike, it's a better direction. I'm just excited for something new, for sure. Just a revamp.
I do like the cast. I mean, Bishop was kind of there already, in and out. But I know they're trying to push this Tempo character a lot. But, aside from that, it's a decent cast. It could be interesting. Psylocke and Dawkins especially. So we'll see.
We do have a super chat. Thank you so much, New Type JB Lee. As much as I disliked Outlawed, I did like Eve's run on Champions because Kamala was written better there compared to how she was written in Amon's run. There you go.
Yeah. She was written well in the book overall, I think. But it's just, I didn't enjoy the story that was going on in that book.
Yeah, Champions always had potential. It just... that most recent run just did not work. And I have a feeling eventually it will be relaunched again and just come up with a better story. It's just, how many copies do you think Champions actually sold with the Outlawed storyline attached to it? Nobody probably bought that.
Yeah, especially post-COVID. I think a lot more were more interested when it was first announced, and then when it was delayed 20 times. I think it's like, should I be interested in this? And I honestly wasn't even interested from the beginning. But when it was first announced, I was like, okay, at least they're doing something with the teens. But then when it was Kamala's whole story was released, I was like, man, I'm not into this.
Yeah, it was basically Civil War 2.0 with the with the whole New Warriors thing. That's what they were trying to go for, right? The legislation and all that stuff, and it felt watered down compared to what we've gotten in the past with that kind of storyline.
Yeah,
for sure.
And that New Warriors book never even came out.
Yeah,
never came out, and I don't think they're planning on making it come out. We do have another question from Bear F. The new Comixology Scott Snyder book started today. We were discussing it pre-show. Honestly, it wasn't really on my radar until I looked at my pull list and I saw I was only getting 7 books. So I was like, hey, I should try it out. Get it digitally because, I mean, all of us don't really love reading digital books. So we'll see. We'll see if we'll end up covering. I will definitely be reading issue 1 tomorrow just because of the pull list. All right. Do you think that every writer should think out of the box? I think every writer should think outside the box, but not too much.
I mean, there's something to be said about a status quo with a long-established character, right?
Sure.
You definitely want to hit certain beats and that kind of thing to keep, longtime readers happy or keep it where you can, in the classic, ongoing character thing of setting everything back when you're done for the next writer and that kind of thing. But yeah, I think you need to I think every writer needs to always put their mark on a character, no matter who it is. So
I think, Nightwing, Immortal Hulk, Venom were really good examples of thinking outside the box by still staying true to the characters. So do stuff more like that for sure. So before we get into comics, we do have 2 topics we want to discuss and obviously keep asking questions, but we'll quickly go through Venom 2. So Mike, did you end up seeing Venom 2?
I did see Venom 2. And I did not dislike the movie, but
long.
I definitely felt like it was entertaining. It was definitely watchable. I enjoyed elements of it, but there was definitely something missing, right, from what I saw. And one of those things is that this goes back to the model of Disney Plus, right? We're getting used to the point now where we're getting characters that are established through a show, and it has time to flesh out those characters. The problem with Venom is that you get quickly introduced to to Cletus, right? And before you know it, it's over. And you're just kind of like, man, that's it? Because the movie's runtime is only an hour and a half. That's it. It's a really short movie. And
but did it feel short? Do you feel like it felt like a short movie? Do you feel like it felt like a short movie? Because I feel like there's things that they prolonged, like especially in the middle, and then you get to the end, and you're like, yeah, that was it. There was so much time they could have done stuff with, and they didn't do things with.
Yeah, I definitely do. I mean, I think there was too much of certain things going on, right? That didn't need to go on, without spoiling it. But it was definitely, when it comes to the character of Carnage himself, I would have loved to see more of Carnage, right? Didn't see enough of him.
And less of his girlfriend. Yeah, right. I didn't really understand the romance.
I didn't need to see his girlfriend. Like, I didn't care about that, really. Honestly, I don't think that was necessary. I think if you wanted to establish the character, establish him, don't worry about his girlfriend right now, And I just think they could have done something else and maybe made it more of the father-son relationship of, Venom and Carnage. But that was it really didn't mean anything. And the way they changed the whole origin story of Carnage was a little bit different too, compared to the comic.
I didn't like Carnage here. Yeah, I felt like Venom was definitely a lot of fun, but Carnage, I'm like, this is so different from the comic. And maybe if it was rated R, it'd be scarier. But he was a little bit too bombastic for me. I was like, okay, whatever.
I would have loved
he was like a little too out there.
I actually would have loved to see more Cletus in this, because what's the motive there between Cletus and Eddie. You know what I'm saying? And what's the motive between Carnage and Venom? And I just think there was no real motive, you know? It was just like, oh, right away, I got to kill him and we'll be unstoppable. It's like, it's kind of lame, you know what I'm saying? And so that's where I was frustrated with. And even though I did like the humor with Venom and Eddie, and I think it shows the symbiosis, their relationship with each other was cool, I do think that it was overdone. Okay, so it was just like, okay, we don't need to get to like Deadpool level type of humor here, and that's where I felt they were trying to go with it, and I think it was just a little bit too much. And then the ending, I was a little bit disappointed.
They embraced what the first one had, though, and I think that was good.
What's that?
Like, they embraced what the first one had with Venom and Eddie's relationship, which I did like. I do agree, maybe it was a little too comedic, but I don't know if it got to Deadpool level, luckily.
It was, I just thought that it was trying to be too comical for me. And the ending, I was just a little bit disappointed with. And then
the post-credit or the ending?
No, just the ending of the movie. But what made that movie all worthwhile is the end credit scene. And when I saw that,
did it blow your mind? I don't know if I was like, man, like you kind of figured that was going to happen.
No,
right?
I didn't. Honestly, I didn't expect that to happen. No, I didn't expect that. I was kind of like, oh shit, it just got real. Like, it got real. So I was excited about that because now you can basically say anything that's happening is, well, it you know,
canon will say.
Yeah.
You know. It was, it was a fun movie. It's not the worst thing ever. It was very forgettable. I don't know if I would ever watch it again. I actually think I liked Venom 1 more somehow. I think because it was so unexpectedly weird and fun. This one's like, oh, I already knew what I was expecting. I was like, oh, I guess I got something.
Right. So I think maybe we got some comments too on this also. I wasn't paying attention.
I did highlight some of them. Most people said they didn't see it, which is actually interesting. Oh, we should have we'll pull Brant back just for done because he didn't see the movie either. But we'll get to some comments. But yeah, most of the comments were like, "What did you think of the post-credit scene?" And I didn't see the movie, and it should have been rated R.
It should have been rated R.
Definitely should have been. We also have another super chat. New type JB Lee says, isn't Miles being on 616 really that bad? I like his friendship with the champions, especially Kamala, and I enjoy his interactions with Peter. I don't think it's worth it for what we had in the Ultimate Universe, in my opinion.
I agree. I think his Ultimate Universe was just, there was much more offered to him, right? And so and I'm sure we'll talk about it, but his 30th anniversary issue that just was released this past week, it didn't deliver on high level. It was just like, hey, I'm Miles, I saved the day, and here's my cool new outfit. And it's like, okay, and I'm going on a date with Starling. So what's going to be next for him, right? And that's what I'm curious to see.
Yeah, I feel like he got lost in the shuffle once he came to the 616 a little bit. There's just so many spider characters in the 616. He was kind of top dog in the Ultimate Universe there for a while, and that's where the character got popular, and that's why he took off. And yeah, we've talked about it many times. There's bright spots here and there in the 616 runs, but nothing that's lasting. It's like, this is a definitive Miles.
Yeah, absolutely.
So after this, we wanted to talk, Mike, you should introduce our next topic because you were hearing from the interwebs a little bit about Random House and even from your own store.
Yeah, so I've been hearing, not even that, just from other shops too, that and just by going on Instagram and seeing other videos on YouTube. So Penguin Random House actually is not doing too well for comic book shops right now because comic book shops are actually getting deliveries and their Marvel comics are pretty messed up, and to the point to where they have to send probably about 75% of the order back to them. And that's not good. And I know there's a video out there if you want to see it. I think the YouTuber Economics and Comics actually put it out there. And you can see how they package their comics compared to like Diamond, because I think he owns a retail shop. And so what Diamond used was a very thick like box to keep their comics in, and they actually double box it and wrap it and everything else. Where Penguin Random House, their books actually are in that type of box, but it's very thin. So when you get it sent to you in the mail and you get it in the mail, the corners of the box are all bent and everything else. And so you're seeing corners of your comic books basically just trashed. So if you're going to the comic shop to possibly get like 9/8 or 9/6, you're not even going to get that because they're that badly damaged, and it's
Wow.
that badly damaged to the point where you're not going to be even able to sell them. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of your shops, maybe possibly this week, are short on their Marvel comic books because they got to send them back to get credit for them or get replacements for them. So hopefully Penguin Random House actually gets their shit together, because otherwise, how quickly will it be where they might go back to Diamond? And that's not what you want, right? I mean, shit, man, I think that's crazy. Right now, Diamond's probably like, oh, please come back to us now, because you know how we package our comic books.
Yeah,
I guess it shows. There you go, Bram.
No, I was just going to ask, do you think it's a case of like, Penguin, books don't have that collectability necessarily, unless they're like really old books. But you think it's just they're new to the game and they don't understand that yet?
That was what I was just going to say. Like, maybe it's just like, learning curve.
Right. I think they're used to shipping books.
Right.
And books are a little bit more durable.
Right.
Actually, they're a lot more durable. And obviously, they're not collectibles. And they're going to learn real quickly that they're going to be like, oh my God, why are people sending all these books back? And they're not going to realize that it's not just like, oh, you're putting them in a grocery store and it doesn't matter how they're displayed or shit. Like, I don't think they honestly realize how collectible these books are, and they're going to have to change that or they're going to lose that business.
Right. Yeah. I'm actually watching the video right now, and just like when he opened up and like the staples are pulled out of the side and everything. Wow. It's crazy.
I haven't seen that with any of the books I've gotten yet, but time will tell.
Another few images, if you guys want to check it out, over on Instagram, Comic Toms 101, Russ, who is in Milky Comics, he also got his delivery from his comic shop, and it shows the whole box of comics, how badly destroyed there are. And those are the images I sent to you this morning, Brand. That's where I got those from. And they were bad, like really bad.
They were.
You're talking not just the front covers bent, but you're talking like the entire like corners bent of the entire comic book.
Nicks and tears and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're not having shipping issues like I am, right, you're going to have Penguin Random House issues.
Yeah. That's crazy. It's like, I get, obviously I create comics, so I get books like for my printer, and they're like double boxed. They're like shrink wrapped in bundles. Yeah. And cellophane, and then, put in a box and then put inside another box. And that's how I get them. And it's like, they're completely secure and stuff. So it just kind of blows my mind. I know we're talking, much higher volume of product here.
We're not asking for the cellophane, but we are asking for the 2 boxes.
Yeah, and I saw somebody say, they should all be bagged and boarded. I mean, that's not realistic when you're talking thousands of books.
And also just money-wise, that's really expensive. It's why, honestly, my comic book store, and I understand why, they don't give me bags and boards for each comic I buy. I just get the comics and that's it. I buy my own bags and boards. There are some comic book stores that do bags and boards. Like I went to one in Georgia just because like I like going to visit comic book stores, and it was Wednesday. So I went in, and it was a relatively new store, and I could kind of tell, which I mean, it's not a bad thing. Like it was a good thing. You kind of tell it was new. And I got my books, and I was, I was talking about like comics or whatever. And he's like, oh, here's your books. I'm like, bags and boards? He's like, yeah. I was like, man, this is the first time I've ever seen this. Like getting individual books back and board, but that's a lot of money and a lot for their revenue for sure.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Tevi asks, random comic out or random penguin house is worse than Diamond. No, I never said that. The problem is that they are new to shipping comic books. So whatever they thought was going to work in their shipping department or their shipping mastermind, it's not working. So they're going to have to definitely fix things. So it's just a matter if the comic shops are going to put up with it, if they're going to have the patience with it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. As long as they're giving Penguin that feedback, or Marvel, either way, somebody that can get the word and it's enough people that keep telling them, surely they'll change their methods, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see what happens with that one. But again, if you're shorted books this week, you with Marvel especially, you probably know why.
It's already a small week, so a shortage of Marvel might really dwindle your pull list.
Right.
That's Mr. Shark says my local comic book store has bagged and boarded all my new comics since 1988. That's crazy. That's awesome.
That's really good. I mean, that's a big expense.
Mm-hmm.
It really is, because I buy, I think 25 bags and boards, I think, that come in a package, and it costs $8 for me.
Yeah,
I get in the hundreds because I do this, obviously, like we pack for Kickstarters, Comic Cons, my own books. I'm like, I just buy it on Amazon. I buy the bundle.
I literally just got 200 bags and boards yesterday from Amazon. Yeah.
I got 600 because I have buy visibility. I actually need more.
Mm-hmm.
And then I told Phil, I said, get more bags and boards, because we have Comic Cons. We have like 4 Comic Cons coming up. So we do bag and board every book that we sell, which, is an expense on us. But because we're a smaller company, we want to impress our customers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Plus, you can, if you have them, you can slip those bookmarks or postcards or whatever.
Oh yeah, and also we double back, so it's like even when I do a Kickstarter, like I'll put it in the front and I'll put it in the back. You're not getting one comic in the bag and board. I'll put like 2 comics in there, and I'll put like a print or something and all that fun jazz. We do have some comments here. My comic shop does some individual bags and some individual bags and boards based on the variant's age ratings. I will say variant covers, and if like they didn't have the book that week, they'll give me a bag and board.
Yeah.
I same thing, like 1 in 25s, the 1 in 50s, 1 in 100s, variant covers that are a little bit more money, but it's just the average book, the average $3.99, $4.99 book. They're the ones that they're on the rack, to buy.
Now we've talked a lot about Marvel's printing, but we haven't talked about their editorial, which is the main topic of our video here, our podcast, which, this is not any news that we know. It's just speculation of how the end happened for Amazing Spider-Man. But spoiler alert, because we're going to talk about the last issue of Nick Spencer's Amazing Spider-Man, and the question of, did editorial kind of come in, and that's why Nick Spencer went to Substack, and he's kind of been quiet. I mean, he's always been quiet on social media about his runs and stuff. We haven't really heard him talk about the ending of his run. Was he supposed to have MJ and Peter get married again? Because that was very much a foreshadowing, and have one more day erased, or was like that sins past and the ending of this book a quick turnaround because they didn't want to do one more day, which makes a lot of sense in my opinion. I'm like, man, writing's kind of on the wall if you read the issue in that frame of mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to tell. I mean, you probably think that he was supposed to do 100 issues of Amazing Spider-Man, and maybe when it was announced that he was going to Substack, maybe they were like, all right, well, maybe you're just going to have to write this up, and you're not going to be able to do exactly what it is that you want to do, right? So it is hard to tell, but it just seemed like this entire issue, or this entire run, it was going to be about Peter Parker, and it really wasn't at the end. It was more about Harry and Norman more than anything else at the end of this story arc, right? And it was just, I don't know, man. I just felt like it was disappointing in a way. And it was all this buildup, and you were just like, oh, for what? Mary Jane and Peter Parker, they have love for each other, but we've known that forever already. They didn't get married. I thought Peter was supposed to like practically die, and he seemed fine at the end of the last issue, right? And so, and one of the things that I felt kind of weird about when it came to Amazing Spider-Man is when he was buried under all that rubble and he couldn't get out himself, Mary Jane just comes in there and goes, "Take my hand, Peter, I'll get you out." And then the next thing you know, it's like he's out of that rubble. And I was just find that
MJ's a powerful girl, so
I just found that unbelievable, But I think maybe some things could have been actually changed. I can't believe that this was more of a Harry Osborn story than anything. And what do you get out of that? Harry Osborn's dead. So now there's no more Harry, and then there's no more clone of Harry. So what's going to happen after that? Right? Do we still have AI Harry, though?
I was so disappointed. I don't even know at this
We
point. I was so
don't even
disappointed
know.
with this
It was
death.
never even answered. Like, what happened?
No, nothing was answered in that regard by any means. Like, oh my God. I feel like there's a lot that happened, but a lot didn't happen in this. Like, they're trying to make, I said this in my review. I felt like, the Flash Thompson death was so powerful in Dan Slott's ending.
Yes.
And it's just like, I try to compare it to the Harry one. Because it's like, they technically did the same thing, but there was literally no emotion when Harry died. I'm like, why should I care? Like, even his conversation with Peter was so short. It's like there was no conversation. And I don't want to say I dislike this issue because I don't think it was the worst issue of this run, but I also didn't like it by any means.
Yeah. I agree with the Flash Thompson thing and the Harry thing because Flash Thompson had a relationship with Peter forever, and he never died, and he became so many things. While Harry has always been Harry, and then maybe he was like the Green Goblin and whatever, and he already died, but you already knew this wasn't the real Harry. Like, it was already told to you that it was not him, that he was something else. And when he died, it was kind of like the same effect that I had with Boomerang. It just happened out of the blue. It was like Nick Spencer tried to do like this shock value. And he wasn't heroic in the issue in any way, shape, or form. And so when his death actually happened, you're kind of like, oh, okay, he's dead now. Big deal. And it's just like, when is he going to come back? Or if he comes back, what is he going to be now? Because, again, he was a clone. So are they going to have another clone of him? It's just weird.
I wonder, like, we talked about how long this story went on, but I wonder if it was actually cut short. Because they wanted to get
so
to
weird
this,
to say, right?
I know, right? But because they wanted to get to this Beyond thing, and Ben Reilly and all this stuff, they wanted, and they were approaching this milestone issue, whatever. I wonder if they actually cut it short, and he had to like kind of compact that ending and throw all these things in to wrap these little subplots up and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. Part of me thinks that like maybe we hope that Editorial messed with it because we like Nick Spencer and want to believe he could do this well. But on the other hand, there are definitely signs that they could have had some kind of influence into the direction of the story. Yeah.
It felt so rushed, a lot of those aspects.
Yeah.
Again, like the Sins Past being second to last issue, and then One More Day not being reverted, and then just having this story about like, oh, it's because Mayday couldn't be born. Also, May having red hair is like, so that wasn't really Mayday. I was just like, okay. It's so funny because literally last week I was like, oh, the only thing that can make me love this issue is if Mayday appeared, and she kind of does, and it did make me love this issue. I don't know. It's interesting because Tevye is saying that, Flash Thompson's death felt really random in Dan Slott's run. I felt this death felt really random and had no heaviness. I felt Flash's death was a build-up from everything he was with Venom. Like he grew as a character, and him sacrificing himself for the kid he bullied meant so much. And then having the epilogue, having honestly multiple pages to tell that death was the reason why I compared that to be a much better story, and probably one of my favorite deaths in the past like 5 to 10 years. Honestly, like comparing to like Peter's death in the Ultimate Universe, it's one of my favorite deaths. I think they did such a beautiful job with it. And honestly, no matter what you think of Dan Slott's run, I thought he had a really great last issue.
Yeah, I agree.
I do too. I really enjoyed it. I mean, listen, this whole run, it completely shifted. So if you want to talk about the run as a whole, the finale, this overall, if you had to grade Nick Spencer's run, right? You look at the beginning of it when he started with Ryan Ottley, on the tone of the series from the very start. It was completely different, right? Yes, you got sprinkled with Kindred here and there, right? But overall, it was completely different. But as soon as you got to a specific issue that had to deal with Last Remains and everything else, it threw every single fucking other character out the door, right? It threw Jay Jonah out the door. It showed his roommate out the door. Shit, Peter Parker never even went home anymore after that part. He never even saw his house. You know
what happened? What happened to Robbie?
Yeah, Robbie was with Beetle, and that's about it.
You know, and it just like all that stuff just disappeared, and it just focused on Kindred. And not only was it one Kindred, we found out that it's two Kindreds this whole time, right? And it just that was just like, oh wow, so it was them as the Kindreds, like
but not to the very end. I mean, that seems like that could have been. I don't know. I think we got so many filler issues and filler arcs throughout this whole run that we could have done without. The whole thing with the GOG or whatever, we could have done without that. And
even Craven.
Craven, that those really old villains that none of us remembered who they were, those kind of things. And
there's so much you could have taken out. I feel like what's so interesting, you look at the first couple of issues and everything was about character. It was about, what's Peter's relationship with MJ, blah, blah. Character didn't matter after a while. There was no character building anymore. Like Peter, literally, I felt like he was hollow with a lot of his monologue. It just was there. I just didn't feel any emotion. It
wasn't about Peter.
Yeah.
No, it really wasn't.
Peter, at the end of the day, it's about Harry.
Yeah, and there were several
but
instances.
But even him, it had no emotion.
Right.
Harry, I didn't care about him.
Yeah, there were several instances. I remember us talking about how angry Peter was at different times. It's like it doesn't seem like him at all. It's what's going on here, and it just he felt a lot of people felt out of character throughout this run, and it was just I don't know. It's hard because there was that beginning that got us all hopeful, and like you guys said, we loved like the character building and his supporting cast being back and all that, and then as soon as it was here, it was gone again. So
I mean, and then when you look at like what defines a character, right? A lot of the times we always say what defines a character is the villain, right? And so in Sinister War, you wind up getting all these villains, and the motivation was because of Kindred. Kindred was supposed to be the grand villain for Nick Spencer. Not only do you find out that not only is it one clone, it's two clones, and it's from the freaking worst story ever possibly made. Right? And
no, we didn't need a retcon. It's like we already forgot about that story.
And the way they died.
I didn't forget about it, but
right? And the way they died was because Mephisto was like, it's over. And the aging process happened and they just dropped dead because of old age. Not even because of a fight. It was so, again, uneventful. Like you were expecting this huge climactic ending and it just fell flat. And that was that.
I agree with that. Just going to the Since Past thing, I quit reading Amazing Spider-Man during that run. I hated it that much. I despised what they did with that story. So that's my one great takeaway from this run is that they retconned that. and I'm happy about that. So thank you, Nick Spencer, for that. I'll say that.
But will any of these stories affect the future of Spider-Man? I think that's my biggest issue as well. It's like even the Mephisto stuff, like that was such a build-up. We got no payoff with Mephisto besides like, oh, I might die soon, so that's why I did all this. Poor me. And then like, are we actually going to get any revelation? Like, where's Ben Reilly get into all of this? Like, I thought we were going to get some big notions of like why Ben Reilly was taking over, and
and you didn't get any of that. It was just like
except like the ending a little bit.
Yeah, it was just like one big brawl for the most part, and it was just uneventful. That's what I mean. Like we didn't get like we didn't get a marriage, we didn't get that retcon, we didn't get how it leads in. Maybe Peter is possibly dying and Ben Reilly comes to save. Like you don't get any of that stuff. And that's why you're kind of left scratching your head going, okay, this was the worst possible way to end this book. We're just going to throw in, well, because Mary, like you said, Kat, Mary Jane and Peter Parker are possibly going to have a kid and the kid's going to be Mayday. And I'm afraid of what's going to happen to me if that happens. So that's why I did what I did all this time.
We don't even know if he was going to die. We just know that he's scared.
It was just pretty bad. But at the end of the day, if you had to grade Nick Spencer's run on here as a, let's go 1 to 10, obviously 10 being the best and 1 being the worst. Kat, what would you rate this one?
I think I give it a 4 because there was good parts in it, like especially the beginning, and the artwork was never bad. So I'll give it a 4 out of 10.
Brant?
I'm going to be a little bit more generous. I'll say 5.5.
5.5?
Yeah.
I'm giving this a 3.
Honestly, I don't blame you. I really don't.
You know, when I really look at it, it started off good. It started off to where I was like, oh, look, Mary Jane and Peter are dating again. The stories were really a lot of fun. You had Ryan Otley on the artwork. And then Mary Jane disappears. And then the artwork started getting inconsistent. You started getting less of the fun stories. It started becoming more about Kindred. You still didn't find out who Kindred was until like issue whatever it was. And then you felt like you were promised something big at the end. Like you thought Sinister War was going to be about the villains going against Spider-Man. But again, it was the manipulation of Kindred. The reveal of Kindred was underwhelming. And the ending was underwhelming as a whole. And we could not even do one issue with one artist. We had to have multiple issues on this final issue and throughout the books as well, which was very disappointing. So when I look at it as a whole, it really is. It is a 3 for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I mean, that's fair. I totally get that. I think just thinking back to our discussions on certain issues and stuff, I think there were issues I enjoyed a little bit more than you guys. Here and there, and so that's kind of where my rating comes from. It's like I'm kind of hanging my hat, so to speak, on those good moments that I did enjoy through the run. But I agree with you. Overall, the whole Kindred thing was just, it wasn't what I wanted from this run at all. So,
yeah, absolutely.
It looks like we have a super chat here. New type JB Lee. In hindsight, having an all-male creative team on Ahmad's Miss Marvel run was not a good idea because every female side character was badly written. I never blame a full male creative team because I do think there are male writers who could write good female characters. Like, Paper Girls is a great book, and that's a full male creative team. But, I think a female point of view is great too, because obviously we saw that with G. Willow Wilson. So I don't know. I think it's just I don't know. It didn't stick the landing as much as a lot of people wanted, which is a shame.
Yeah.
So going back to Spider-Man real quick now, we get these multiple writers on here. Who would you like to see write Spider-Man?
out of the ones that are all writing it, like who could take it over? Or
No.
just anybody?
Just in general.
Anybody you
I mean,
would want.
I would still say Kelly Thompson. So.
Kelly Thompson, Tom Taylor. Those are my top two picks. Barring those two.
We had Tom Taylor in
That's true.
And he wasn't as good on that.
That is true. You are absolutely correct. So I'd like to see what Kelly Thompson would do. But barring Kelly Thompson, thinking of people that are at Marvel that aren't DC or just in general.
Anybody.
Man. I don't know. I gotta think about that. Brian K. Vaughan. Yeah. Jeff Johns.
Jeff Johns.
That'd be wild. Although he's written Avengers and stuff.
Yeah. I didn't like his Avengers run though.
I would like to see, and it's never going to happen, at least not right now, but I would like to see what Donny Cates would do with Spider-Man, especially since he already wrote Venom. What would he do with the other side, of the character? So,
what's so crazy? I don't know if we're ever going to get it just because of where he is in his career. I feel like he wrote Venom, he wrote Thor, and is he in Substack? I forget. Is he doing Substack?
Donny Cates? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so if he's doing Substack, he's already made his name. Why would he have to be on a flagship book? I feel like that's the reason to be on a Batman or a Spider-Man is to make your name. He already did that. So I don't know if you need to do Spider-Man. Would that because let's say it's a letdown. Like, does that help his career or hurt it?
Right. I mean, unless it would be a passion project of his.
Exactly.
But I would love to see Tom Taylor with another shot of Spider-Man also, just to see what he could do with the main book. And I don't know, man. I don't know who else I would want on that book, but hey, it can't. I don't know. We need somebody.
I see Jeff Lemire in the comments, and Jeff Lemire would be a really good one.
That would be a good idea. Yeah, Jeff Lemire would be a good idea.
Because I don't think he's done a big mainstream book.
See, I don't think he would, though.
Yeah, but I love his character work. I would love to see what he would do with it.
I don't think he wants to deal with maybe the editorial issues. I think he wants.
And he also is at Substack.
yeah, it's right.
Savia says, "What about Tom DeFalco? I love Tom DeFalco with all my heart, but he's wrote Spider-Man for decades. So I don't, I don't know if I would want.
They won't go back there.
That's been on it, or exactly, and they won't go back either way. But even let's say that was a possibility. I already saw his run, unless it was a very different spin on what he's done. Like, I think he wrote a lot of Spider-Man in his life. If it was Spider-Girl, love to see him return. But
who wrote Sideways?
Oh man, who did write Sideways? I don't know. Let's look it up. Sideways.
I know Dan Didio co-created it.
Yeah, I don't remember who wrote it though.
Let's see.
I remember we compared it to Spider-Man a lot because it had a very similar tone.
Yeah,
it was just Dan Didio.
Was it?
I think so. These are correct. I think it was just Dan Didio. Interesting. That was a good book.
Yeah, it was.
Right.
That would be the day, right? Dan
Didio coming back to write Spider-Man.
He leaves the Kubert school, writes Spider. Oh, Justin Jordan, they said. Who's doing Webtoon right now? Who's doing a lot of stuff with Webtoon.
He also does. I think he wrote that Image book that I was reading, Summoner's War.
Oh, okay. So he's still doing traditional books as well.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that when I looked at Previews World because I was like, okay, it was still at Diamond at that point. It only said Dan Didio, so it's kind of crazy that they didn't credit Justin Jordan as he should be.
That's really weird.
Huh. All right, well, there's that amazing Spider-Man talk for you. That chapter is done and wrapped up. Next is Beyond. And
talk about that next week.
How weird it's going to be. I'm still looking forward to it. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it weekly. I'm like, I don't want to, like, as much as I love my Spider-Man, I don't want to talk about it weekly.
We're talking about it. Brant and I are all over it. We're going to be talking about it. See what we see this week.
It's
this
too
week
much.
On Spider-Man Weekly. That's what we just need to call,
It won't be
show now
anymore. Exactly.
Spider-Man Weekly all the time.
Comic book
Every
weekly,
title-
weekly beyond. That's what
Every
that'll be our
title
new
will
name.
be Spider-Man. It won't
Yeah.
be like we won't cover any other character.
Nope.
All right. Well, we talked about Amazing Spider-Man in depth now. We got our final thoughts there. So let's talk about another comic book that I don't think Kat liked it, right, Kat?
I
Deathstroke?
didn't. I was pretty disappointed with this one.
Deathstroke Incorporated. I liked it. I thought it was actually pretty good. I wasn't a huge fan of the artwork. I know you guys
That's why.
had your reserves about it last week, and even though I wasn't like the biggest fan of the artwork, I thought the story was all right. I thought it was kind of cool. I liked seeing the two team up with each other and Deathstroke kind of giving his reasons, like, yeah, I kind of want to go the straight arrow. I want to, I owe that to my family. I don't know if that's the truth. I thought it was kind of cool how he got all this Batman tech, which was fun. But Black Canary never actually gave her reasoning. Like she was about to, and then this emergency actually happened.
It was in Batman Urban Legends, so that's why.
Yeah.
Barry described it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I felt like it started at the middle too much for me, and also was like a little bit too hyperactive. I was like, all right, slow down. Like, who are obviously I know Deathstroke and Black Canary are, but like, what is their narrative? Like, what's their character story here? And it was just really action, and don't mind that if I enjoyed the art, and I didn't like the art, so I was like, okay, then what am I reading this issue for?
Yeah, I didn't mind the way it started. That was fine. It's like, okay, we're starting. It's like an action movie kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or a spy movie that whatever. But the art, I don't like Howard Porter's art. I just don't, and that's just a preference. Nothing against him. I just don't like the style.
Right.
So that took me out of it a little bit, but it wasn't that. Like I could handle the art, but the story just didn't give me enough to hang on to.
Sure.
I wasn't interested in where this was going by the end of the issue. So that's that really.
That is that.
Tony Stank said, I have loved Jed McKay on Black Cat, so I'm looking forward to Beyond. So there's another one. Jed McKay would be actually a good contender for Spider-Man, I think.
Yeah. I would like to see that. That'd be good.
All right. So there's Deathstroke Incorporated. So I probably liked it the most out of you guys, but
you definitely did.
It still was not in my top 5 this week. So I didn't like it all that much. Actually, it wasn't even in my top 7. So I had 7 books that I really liked, and I struggled with my top 5 where it was going to fit.
It was my least favorite book of the week. It was both our least favorites, it seemed like. It was way on my bottom.
That's funny. All right, so let's talk about our number 5 pick this week. My number 5 was Spawn issue 322. This was a really, really good issue. This continued off of a story from last issue where Spawn came to this house, wound up rescuing. He winds up going and rescuing this girl who's been captured for 4 years, and this guy was basically raping her, and she had a baby there, and basically torturing her. And he's a vampire, right? So he rescues her, and then what happens is he brings her back to the place. She's safe. He goes back to the vampire's place, and he basically tortures him, getting back at what he did to that female. And you got to see all the stuff that this character wound up going through. Like, he had to go through this corridor of spikes to try to escape. And, and then he's like, oh, it looks like you went the wrong way. Now your dogs that you also abused are going to eat you if you don't escape going back through that corridor. Like, he put him through just this torture so he could experience all the pain and suffering that this young girl suffered through. So I really enjoyed that issue. It was quite entertaining to see that person go through, that vampire go through that punishment. So really entertaining book. And Spawn is at all levels right now.
We also have a super chat from New Type JB Lee. Kat, what are your thoughts on Champions overall and all the runs besides Wade, Zub, Ewing, Lore compared to something like Young Avengers? Oh, I enjoyed Young Avengers a lot more than Champions. I don't think I ever loved Champions, but I think the best of Champions was Zub for me.
The best Champions run I think was the original. Personally,
Well, not Wade. You think Mark Wade was the best, or do you think it was that like middle times? I remember that's when you liked it the most.
Wade was the first one that did the.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah, we
so
all
then
dropped it.
It was Zeb Wells then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And that's what it was. All right. So going back to that number 5, that was my number 5. Kat, what was yours?
Mine was Serial issue. What are we up to? Issue 7. This issue, we get a little bit more from the serial killer. She kills her boss, who's a therapist, and she gets revenge on the person who tortured her and kind of made her the way she is now. So we're finally getting a little bit more progression in the story. These are always really short to me, but it's not my favorite Terry Moore series, but still pretty fun.
Yeah, I like that she lost I always forget that girl's name. The one that looks like a little girl. Yeah, Zoe.
Yeah, Zoe.
That she got away from her. It was like, she knew she was on her tail the whole time. But yeah, there was definitely more progression with this one, and that whole thing with the therapist, like, I killed him. It's like,
right?
I killed you.
I love that yeah. That was such a good scene. And that honestly is what made it go to my top 5, was that one scene.
Right. Gotcha.
Cool. And then Brant?
Mine's going to surprise you guys, I think, because I actually like this book, X-Men Inferno, issue 1.
Oh, wow. It does surprise me.
Yeah. I liked specifically, I liked the way it ended. Not so much the build-up. I did think it was a little bit slow getting to the point, but the hoops that they went through, we finally see Moira again and get some background on her, and some surprising things with her. I felt like, her whole stance on mutants and all that was interesting. And the scene I really loved was going to they got Sinister's help and everything, and then when Destiny comes back, it's just everybody's just like shocked, and Sinister's like, yeah, they got one up on you. I love that scene for some reason. It just stands out to me. Like it was like the perfect reaction from him, and Professor X just kind of hanging his head down. They lost everything in that moment, and I thought that whole scene played out really well. So.
Yeah, I mean, that scene was definitely good, but the rest of the issue for me was just like, man, I love the beginning of the issue when they were going through orchids, or that's what it is. And constantly you find themselves going back to that space station to try to defeat them. And then they keep getting defeated by Nimrod. So it's like this inevitable thing that's about to happen. Like they're not going to be able to stop it. It's just no matter how hard they try. And I really enjoyed that scene in that opening sequence to that issue. And then from there on out, I just felt like, I was just like, I'm just being retold everything that had already happened. And I, in very many ways, going, at this point in the game, do I care? You know what I'm saying? Because we've waited for these answers for how many years? And it's just like, it's been a couple years at this point now. But I'm like, yeah, I do care, but let's just get to the point, And it took forever to get to that payoff of where we needed to get to, So I liked how it ended. The issue I felt was too long. It didn't need to be as long as it was. The artwork was gorgeous. I like that. We're going to get a different artist on the next book. Their artists are changing on the issues, which kind of sucks. But
interesting.
But hopefully the next issues won't be as long or as much narration or whatever, as much dialogue. Because I felt like that, okay, here's what Hickman's doing. He's putting everything that he had in his brain, he's shoving in these last 3 issues. And that's what it felt like to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I care enough because I'm also dropped X-Men at this point. So I'm like, do I need this? And I decided I don't think I do. And also I honestly was relatively bored with this issue. And I agree with Mike. I think it was a little too late for me. So I don't know. I don't know if I'll pick up the next issue or not, honestly.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think it's like 3 issues though. It's not that long.
There's only 3.
Yeah, I think it's pretty. Yeah, they're
It's
going to
so
be thicker.
boring.
They're going to be thicker issues, but I think there's only 3 of them.
We'll see when that week comes out.
I wasn't bored. That's the thing. Looking back at some of the other books I read, and maybe it's the week or whatever, but it's like compared to some of those, it's like, man, this was actually entertaining, and I got something from it.
Well, that's good. I mean, there's some books when I read, right? I read and I'm like, oh my God, is this ever going to end? Like, that's how I am with certain books. Like, it just keeps on going and going and going. And in this book, at the beginning was good. And then that middle portion, it was just like, okay, like, I get it. Like, I understand. I've read everything that's happened before. Like, I know that. And it's just, maybe that's what it was for me. And so when it finally got to the payoff, at that point, I was like super bored. But I did enjoy that last little bit of it, Yeah. So. All right. So that was our number 5. So let's talk about crossover issue 8. So what did you guys think about this? We had a little bit of a hiatus here when it came to this, and now it gets you thrown back in. So what did you think of the issue?
This book doesn't blow my mind. It's like I like the meta commentary, and it's always mid-tier for me. Like, I enjoy the book, but I don't love the book. Except the Chip Zdarsky issue, I really, really enjoyed. But yeah, we got back to this. I was like, oh, this is not Chip's issue. It was good. I liked it. Like, I enjoy where it's going, but I feel like it's a little slow, the pacing of this book. Like, there's a lot of like big moments of powers and these actual crossover characters, but the actual characters, there's progression, but there's not a ton. I don't really know what this series is right now.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not one of those like I can't wait to read it kind of books, but I still enjoy it, and I love. I love the aspect of the crossover in it, and you mentioned powers and them showing up. Even though I'm not like a huge fan of powers, I appreciated that, and I liked that whole sequence, that whole exchange, and I liked the opening scene where they were the comic pages thrown in and stuff like that, and even the previously in this issue where they just like did this whole big image of every single page that's ever been printed in this book so far, which I thought was clever and kind of tongue in cheek. So there's things like that you enjoy about the book, and I'm still invested in what's her name, Ellie, whatever.
Ellie,
yeah. I'm still invested in her and want to know more about her story. But yeah, I agree with you, Kat. It's not blowing my socks off or anything like that, but I do enjoy it.
I wish there was a little bit more that happened also in this issue. I felt that's what I was disappointed in, because I read it, and then so unlike Inferno, this issue ended for me in like 2 minutes. It was it was really quick.
Yeah, it was.
It's like you kind of got this little bit of a recap of everything that goes on. They're in the hotel room. The next thing, they get taken in by the powers people. And then we find out the revelation at the end of the father was there. And you're kind of like, oh. And then before you know, you're at the last page. You're like, shit, it's over? Like, that's it?
Right.
And I was like, you didn't get a lot of story progression. So, and after a story being a little bit of on a hiatus for a while, you would want something else, So, it's all right. I'm still going to read it because I find it also a very interesting story. It's definitely original. I love all the crossover, type of stuff in it. So it's fine for what it is, just not top tier right now.
Yeah.
All right, good. All right, so let's move on to number 4. Kat, what was your number 4?
Mine was Superman, Son of Kal-El, issue 3. Are we up to? Yeah, issue 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, this issue was interesting. I guess it's a crossover with Action Comics. I'm not reading Action Comics, but it has to do with Superman leaving and John kind of taking over. But I really like his dynamic between him and his friend. I'm curious to see where that's going to go. I liked his, fan freak out over Lois Lane. There's some good touching moments between Superman and John. It's just a well-balanced issue. I enjoyed this one.
Do you think his friend is something more? Not necessarily, I'm talking about like evil or something else.
I think he's something. I think they're doing something with this guy. Like either like he might be evil, maybe he'll be a hero, maybe they'll be together. I don't know. I definitely think he's more important than just a friend right now.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
There's something there.
They're putting a lot of time into this guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I don't mind. I like him. I like him as a character. I actually feel like this book is better because of introducing a new character and making him kind of a POV into John's life. I actually like that aspect.
Right. So I'm interested to see where they take that. And I really like this book because I do like the father-son moments. And even if it crossed over with Action Comics, it didn't take away from the story at all. And I liked how John just stood up for himself and how he believed in what all the protesters were believing in, because he told them, hey, my dad was a refugee. He came here from a ship, and these guys are doing the same thing. And if you got to arrest these people, you got to arrest me too. And I like that. I like how what he believes in. You know what I'm saying? And I just think it gives the character a lot more depth. And if people are upset that John is a different character than his dad, then I don't know what you expect. He's not going to be his dad. He's completely different. I know we talked about this before, but he grew up on Earth, and he is his own person. He is half human. So it would be stupid to make him the same person as his father. And at the same time, John spent a lot of time away from his father, and he spent it with his grandfather. So he's going to have different views and different morals, and you have to accept that, I think, if that's the way Tom Taylor is writing them.
Yeah. I like the way that they're establishing how different he is and how he's his own thinker. He's forming his own opinions and his own stance on different issues and things like that. And I also love the parallel, not just with him and Clark, but him and Lois. And they kind of exhibited that with him being arrested and, Superman saying, no, your mom's gotten arrested a lot. Little things like that I think are rounding out John's character more than we've ever seen before. And that's another reason this book is so good. But I agree that adding his own supporting cast with this new friend and, building on that is, also helping. And now we're going to see how he carries the book without Superman in it at all. So that's going to be interesting going forward.
Right.
Which he's done a good job at already.
Yeah.
Tevia says, John Kent complaining about the future 24/7 drives me insane. I think they balance it well. I don't think that's all he talks about. I think it's, just like anybody, especially if you're a superhero and someone figuring out your life, you're going to talk about the future. He's in a spot. He's going to college like that. And he's not anymore, right? He's in the spot of when you graduate college. Like, man, what am I going to do with my life? And that's where he's at. And that's what most people are going to think about when you don't, you don't know what your future is like, and especially with the weight of the world on your shoulders.
Yeah,
absolutely. So it's a good book. All right, Brant, what was your number 4?
Black Cat number 10. This was a fun issue. I thought. I don't think it was the strongest issue of this arc, but I still enjoyed it quite a bit. They come face to face with Fury again, so that we circle back to that whole thing, which that was fun. Battling again, and there was some really good art. That one panel where it was almost like a Black Widow page where she's leaping through the rooftops and everything. You got several instances of her and her inner monologue during that whole sequence was really good too. Just trying to figure this out, and
she comes across the guy from Heroes Reborn.
Yeah, Nighthawk, one of the Squadron Supreme guys. Yeah, and he remembers everything from Heroes Reborn, which was interesting. So we're actually calling back to that. In a good way though. It was because he wants to turn it back, and apparently him and Black Cat were together in that reality.
Yeah, and she doesn't remember it.
Right.
So he wants the stone so he can actually make that all happen.
Yeah. So that was good because it's like, even if you didn't read the Heroes Reborn stuff, it's just like this little thing that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but it adds this little bit of interest to the story. And all the while, Star's watching all this, just kind of eating it all up. So that was good
drops,
too.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it.
That's a good book. Yeah.
Yeah.
Empire Comics says, "Hey everyone, did I miss the Nick Spencer talk?" Yeah, Empire, you're gonna have to go back and watch it. It was probably like, what do you say, guys? Like 20 minutes
40,
ago?
Yeah, it was 20 minutes.
30,
probably
yeah.
like the 40-minute
somewhere
mark. We talked about it.
Yeah.
We talked about it for a good amount of time. So hopefully, if you after the rest of the show, you go back and you can hear all our wonderful thoughts on Nick Spencer's run. All right. So, and then we talk about my number 4. My number 4 was actually that book Gun Honey from Titans Comics. It actually was good.
I saw that on your haul and I was like, oh, that cover. That's why Mike got that book.
Well, so I got 2 covers. There was that cover, and then there was this cover.
Oh man. So what is this book about?
Did you see the other cover, Kat? Show her the other cover.
I did. I saw it on. I saw it in the hall. Yeah.
Okay.
And so this book is about a Korean arms dealer. So she is actually been raised from her dad to be this type of arms dealer. Taught her how to, learn everything and anything that there is about guns. And if somebody needs a gun, she'll get them the gun. And no matter how small or how tiny it is, she'll get it there so they can take care of their victim, which is kind of cool. And then also, you learn about her origin story, about like where she came from, all these other little tidbits in it. And also the government wants to hire her, wants her to work for them. And she basically declines it. She goes, I work on my own. I do my own stuff. And, of course, the government's like, well, then you better watch your back or whatnot. And by the time we get to the end, she's doing a mission, and she usually doesn't do her own missions, but she did hide a special gun somewhere. She wanted to find herself in like a, tough situation. She goes back to get that gun, and the gun wasn't there. And then someone is trying to capture her. So when you look at the artwork is inside is gorgeous. They obviously make this book for a male. I mean, they draw this female on the inside like the most sexiest way possible. Even when she's answering the door, like her clothes are like waving through the wind, and it's like low cut shirt all the way and everything like that. But the story itself, it surprised me. I thought it was pretty good. It was kind of simplistic, not a lot of dialogue in it, but it gave you enough to know who the character was, where she came from, how she came to be, and then it just takes you on to that next adventure. So it exceeded my expectations. So I did like it.
Sounds unique enough, right?
Yeah, it actually was. I thought it would be like a Black Widow book, but it actually wasn't that.
Nice.
So it was different. All right. So that was our number 4. So we're going to talk about freaking Miles Morales Spider-Man. So
you guys have tried it many times.
And we continue, right?
Yeah.
And so there wasn't anything wrong with this issue. It's just there was just nothing there, though. It was just like if you just want to have fun reading an issue about Miles, this was the issue to do it, right? He's going out, he's saving puppy dogs, he's all excited because he's going out on the date. He's got his new threads, which I hate. I don't like it. I don't think it fits a Spider-Man character. You're supposed to be this aerodynamic fighting. You don't want baggy clothes where people can grab you and throw you onto the ground, but yet he's got this big ass hoodie on, and he's got a double layer mask in front of his face, which I don't like at all. And then basically he goes out on a date. But what saves this issue what's gonna make me buy the next issue is my main man, Taskmaster. He shows
Yeah.
up at the end of the issue, and he's targeting what's it called? Vulture's granddaughter and Miles Morales at the end. So I gotta buy the next issue now.
Is it Starling? Is that her name?
Yeah, Starling.
Yeah. But okay, so it was a fine story. It was only like a half story
like 10
though.
pages.
Yeah, it was very short, and then they had like a couple little short backup stories.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it was weird because it was a regular sized comic, right?
Yeah.
So that was odd, and you didn't feel like you got enough story from that, and then you get that big tease with Taskmaster, which was the saving grace. I agree. As far as the outfit goes, I think it looks cool, but I agree functionality wise, it would not work at all because it's so baggy that as soon as he swung, it'd be like all up around his neck and everything. It looks ridiculous. Work. Yeah.
I just felt really like when he created that costume, he was like, don't you think about like how this stuff would work? Like it's not going to stay in one place. He literally legit is like wearing a hoodie. And it's got to be hot.
I can totally see cosplays coming for this costume, and I think they will look cool. But I can't see this working, and I don't like the double mask thing. That's weird. Because it's like a bandana thing that he pulls up over this, so he has to pull this down, then pull that up. Yeah, it's weird.
I don't know. But I'm buying the next issue, so there's that.
Because the Taskmaster, that hooked me too. I gotta say.
Gotta buy it. All right, let's talk about so Kat's thinking about dropping this, I think, right? Detective Comics issue 1043. And I'm sure what made you want to drop this was because of Vile's little bugs at the end of it, where you get to see them.
With him. I'm so done. I'm so done with this arc. I'm like, what is this book about anymore? Do I need it? Like, I really like Mariko Tamaki's writing. I love Dan Mora's art. But man, it's been like 10 issues of nothing. So,
well, this ties in more to Fear State now.
And I don't like Fear State. So,
I'm kind of in the same boat. It's like I can't imagine dropping it just because I do like Tamaki and Mora. And
where is it going?
I know, but I hate Vile, and I'm so sick of it. And I wanted it to be done, and now we're going right back there. And I can understand where you're at, Kat.
I gave it more than enough shots for sure.
Yeah,
this issue was like, I was like, oh man, now you're gonna try to rescue this mayor who's been the problem with this everything that's going on. Like, come on, Batman, just let him go. And then this whole thing will end, right? Gee whiz. We get a comment that says, Spider-Man Noir would like to have a word with you about aerodynamic costumes. Right? Because he wears a trench coat, doesn't he?
He does. Oh, yeah. But at least he looks fancy in his trench coat.
Like I said, the Miles costume looks cool, but the way it was drawn in this issue too, Kat, if you saw it, it's like so baggy and so loose that like when he moves, it's like going everywhere, and it's like
really, because the cover looked okay, so I'm guessing the interiors didn't really do it justice.
They just overdid it a little bit, I think. It's like 3 sizes too big, So
we'll see what happens with it. All right, so that's Detective Comics. We can say that we didn't really enjoy that issue. For me, it was just there, you know, and their big cliffhanger was the bugs. So that was that.
Yeah, I'm good.
So let's move on to number 3. Number 3 for me was Superman, Son of Kal-El. I really enjoyed that book. Brant, what was your number 3?
Mine was also Superman, Son of Kal-El.
Nice. All right, Kat, what was yours?
Mine was Darkhawk issue 2. This is a good issue. Yeah, where he's dealing with his MS, so we get to see the beginning of that. But we also get a Miles appearance, which I know you guys liked a little bit more than I did. I thought it was just like, oh, let's just have Miles here. But I really like the ending. We get the revelation with the friend really quickly, and then he dies, it looks like, because there's a tombstone as the cover of the next issue. So that was crazy. The progression of this origin story honestly reminds me a lot of Miles Morales, of the speed of it and the cliffhangers.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed this one a lot. I
Good
think it
origin
was a well
story.
balanced, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, really good
Yeah.
origin story where I'm like, man, I want to see more from this character, and you're building a lot of trauma for him. I really liked it.
There was so much in this issue, you
Yeah.
know, and even though it was well paced, it was a well paced read. It wasn't like prolonged or anything, but there was so much going on, you know, from his dad trying to get work to him taking his first shot and dealing with that pain and his dad having to comfort him through that. Then the stuff with the friend and finding out what his friend's into and that going sour. And, then you've got the Miles stuff, which the reason I love that so much is because when I really started getting into comics, every time there was a new character, Spider-Man would show up.
Was in it. I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, it was this nostalgic thing, and in this issue, it didn't feel like it was just like thrown there. It made sense that Miles and Ganke would be in line to get some shoes. It just made sense. It fit, and
they're that age.
Yeah, exactly.
Where they go for that trendy stuff. They would be waiting in line on it.
Yeah, and they've talked about that kind of thing in Miles' book, from time to time, a pair of sweet shoes or something, whatever. So, that seemed cool to me. And it seemed like it would make sense and actually happen.
And I did like that there was a lot going on, but I didn't feel like a lot was going on.
Right.
I didn't feel like, oh my God, so much information. Like it all flowed really well.
Yeah.
And honestly, this has been a really surprise book for me. And I hope more people are reading it because it feels like something that is definitely going under a lot of people's radar.
Absolutely. Yeah, but it's so good. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
No, I was going to say it really is a good book. And you going back to about saying how Spider-Man is in it, that's the same thing that happened with Darkhawk's issue. Also, Spider-Man showed up in that book. And so they're kind of doing a nostalgia thing there by putting in Miles Morales. But excellent stuff here. Great storytelling. Definitely had you vested into the best friend because, I felt sad for the kid, he's kind of lost and then he goes and tries to attack Darkhawk and he wants the armor and then he finds out it's his best friend, and it's just like, oh shit.
And he tries to help his friend because he's like, oh, maybe we don't have to get the suit. And then he dies.
Right. Right. And then he goes to go clean. And then what happens is the guy shoots him and now he's going to die. Yeah. So it's a sad issue. It's got a lot of emotions in it,
Mm-hmm.
So I can't wait to see how this whole thing turns out. It's a really good book. All right. So that was everyone's number 3.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to Robin issue 6. What do you guys think about the first major fight here going on with this round 1 and round 2 of this Lazarus tournament? What do you guys think of it?
This book is so good. It reminds me of old school comics where things actually feel like its own world, even though it can be connected to other stuff. Like it feels like it's building a cast and a story. And it feels like it has a beginning, middle, and end to say. And then, having this friendships grow here, but then in a mix of action and the artwork is so good just to see how that action is played out. But these friends are going to have to kill each other at some point. And that's kind of the big part of this issue. It's like, oh, you're going to be friends, but can't for long because this is a place where there's only one person that's going to walk out alive. So it was a really interesting issue.
Yeah, I love the way that friend group came together, though, because it's been steadily building. You already had Ravager and Robin, and now you add Flatline and Connor into this whole thing, and they've all got their own agendas for being there, and you've got the larger plot of what this book is and what the real purpose of the tournament is and everything. So it's not just fight. There's actually story there, and there's actually character growth, and the art is really good.
Yeah.
And the fights were really good. And it's a really good book.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And like you said, I love the relationships in there too. It's kind of cool. Like they get done fighting and then they go and they sit down and they have all these crazy fights and then they just talk amongst friends like it's normal to go rip someone's heart out or go kick someone's ass or bust their jaw. And they just sit down and are like, hey, what's going on? What's happening here? And then you get that Respawn character that shows up and goes, you guys are going to dip out when you lose out your second life and you're not going to hang around, And so that made it for a quite interesting storytelling too, because again, we still don't know who he is. And then at the end, we find out that Robin steals the book, and Respawn is going right after him because you wind up seeing his hooks go after him too. So curious to see what this whole tournament's like, the whole main agenda of this whole thing is, right?
Yeah. And like Son of Kal-El is doing for John, this is a whole different I don't know.
Take on Damien.
Yeah,
like
a whole different take. Yeah, it's taking him to a different level, I think, that we've ever seen before, because he's finally among peers, and peers that he respects and is coming to trust and like, which is something we've never seen with Damien before.
Right.
You know, you got a touch of that with the John Damien stuff, but nothing like this. Everything else, he's always felt superior to everyone around him. But this is different, and I like that. Even
in the Titans book, right? He was still, he had to be above everybody. He had to be a leader. He did things on his own, you know. And then here, it's just like, you're right. He does get to go with peers, and he considers himself like, maybe not in the ring as equals, but like when with his friends, he considers them as people he can actually hang out with, which is something you never saw from him before. So it's just adding more layers to that character, you know, and I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about Angela wanting to be possibly, well, not wanting, but she could take over as Queen of Asgard if Thor continues to screw up. So that's what happened in issue 17 of Thor.
This was a good issue. I really liked the family drama. I thought it felt like a bottle episode to me, because it was all, they're kind of stuck together and they had to talk about their shit. More so Odin and Freya. And Freya, like, being the god of the hunt now was interesting. But yeah, the truth bomb of Angela was really cool, and we'll see where that ends up going. And then you do have the hammer stuff by the end of the issue. That was just a really well-rounded issue that we needed. We needed this family drama, and it worked.
I thought it was good. I didn't love it, but I did like the stuff with Angela and Thor and Odin, and kind of putting them both in their place and kind of telling them you got to step up and you know, stop your whining, basically, which I thought was good. And yeah, Angela's. This is the first time I think I've ever liked Angela in anything.
Yeah, true.
Right?
Great.
So,
yeah,
you know,
sure.
that's definitely praise for this issue alone, just for that. But yeah, Freya, you know, a completely different take on Freya, which I loved. So that was cool. And I'm just curious and excited to see where it goes from this point. So
it was just an issue to give you a little bit of a family dynamic, I think, before the next major story arc, because that's what we're going to get. We're going to get a long story arc now going forward, and you're going to get Nick Klein back on the artwork again too. And so this was kind of like almost like a palate cleanser, this story arc, you know, to kind of just
what you need.
be like, all right,
it's a good way to put
relax,
it. Yeah.
Let's get ready. Things are going to heat up again. So, but it's good to see in a very serious book. I felt like this has been a serious book, so it was good to kind of break it up with, again, some family dynamic here. So it's fine for me. We'll see what happens when we see Angela again, because we haven't seen her in a long time besides this issue, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's move on to our number 2. So, Brant, what was your number 2?
Mine was Darkhawk, which we already talked about.
Kat, what was yours?
Mine was Robin. We already talked about it.
All right. And mine was something is killing the children, which you guys don't read. So something killing the children was actually the continuation of Erica Slaughter's origin story. And you got to see in this issue how the House of St. George, I guess that's what you want to call it, or House of Slaughter, whatever it is, how it actually works. And you wind up seeing Erica pass her trials to become part of that house. And there's all these characters wear these different bandanas. And in this issue, you actually learn what all these bandanas represent. So like if you wear a black bandana, you're one of the ones that go out in the field on their own and defeat the monsters. If you wear a white bandana, you're part of the group that goes with a bunch of people that defeat the stronger monsters. If you wear a green bandana, you're the ones that go out and defeat like the dragon monsters, you know, so that you get to see all these like little different chapters of the house. And so you're just basically getting the origin story of that. And you get to see Erica Slaughter actually meet the head person. And, you know, and she was kind of taken back by it. And, you know, because she's this little kid at this point and she seems a little bit overwhelmed, and she kind of gets comforted by the person that kind of took her under her wing. And so it was an emotional issue, and you got to learn a lot of great stuff here. So I love how Tynion is really, again, just getting the readers to know everything that is happening in this world. I really, really enjoyed this story. So
Awesome.
that's that.
Yeah.
All right. So that was our number 2. And we talked about Superman and Darkhawk. So we're going to jump right into our number 1s. And my number 1 pick of the week was actually Darkhawk issue 2.
Nice.
Super impressed me. This is, again, one of those books that I did not expect to be as good as it was. I was just excited for it to be back because of nostalgia reasons.
Yeah.
And it really is a great story. So,
and good jumping on point too, if you know nothing about the character.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, it's such a good jumping on point. And it's modern too, you know, and that's what I like about it. It's a fresh take on the character. So good.
Yeah.
So, all right, Brant, what was your number 1?
Mine was Robin.
Gotcha. And
Cat's a store.
Mine is Thor, yeah.
Good stuff, guys. All right. So we had those. Those were our top picks of the week. And now we dive into the chopping block. So the chopping block, we have, which looked like Kat had half a chop for Inferno.
I do. It depends on when the next one comes out, what the week looks like. If it's a big haul, I'll probably drop it. If it's not, then I'll get issue 2.
And then we have Deathstroke Incorporated.
That I'm definitely dropping.
Or main chop for both you guys.
That's a main. Yeah. It's mostly the art, honestly. If it wasn't for the art, I would have given it a second try. But I really, I don't like the art.
I'm not sure I would have, but yeah.
Kat's giving a half chop to Detective Comics.
I think it's gonna be a full chop, but again, depends on the week. I'm just kind of done with Detective.
Yeah, and then we have Darkhold. So was like a maybe for me. I don't know. I read this first issue and I was like, almost like Inferno. I was like, my God, when is this freaking shit gonna end? You know, it just kept on going and going with all this magic stuff and about this guy that's coming back because Dr. Doom got the book and all this other stuff. And I was just bored by it. So I don't know. I might continue it. It might get better. Maybe the individual one shots might be good. So we'll see what happens with that one.
I had it as a half chop and I changed it because the more I thought about it, it's one of those things where the characters that are involved in this were randomly brought together by magic, you know, to be the avatars for these I don't know, these people that had stopped this being before, and it was like, man, this is the most random thing ever, and I just don't care. So yeah,
totally get it. We got that super chat.
Super chat. Yep. Yeah. So new type JB Lee says, another Miss Marvel question: do you like Bruno as a supporting character? For me, I find him kind of bland. I mean, Red Dagger is way more interesting. I don't think we saw enough of Red Dagger for me to have an opinion on him, but I love Bruno. I think he's one of the big parts that make that book, and I love his friendship. Or I like his friendship more than his romance with Miss Marvel. But yeah, I love Bruno.
Yeah, I really like Bruno too. I think Bruno's kind of he's the POV character into her world. I think he's the everyman, right?
Yeah.
So he's kind of a necessary character for me, whether it's a love interest or a friendship. But I like that they kind of pulled him out and had him have the relationship with Mike and kind of did his own thing. And I think they're it kind of built on their whole relationship, because they've had both sides of that, and I think now their bond is even stronger because of it. So.
For sure.
Cool. All right. So that was all the chopping block books. Not too many this week. So, Bran, I'll hand it over to you because we're going to
Speaking of
talk
not
about
many.
Yeah, right.
Anticipated. There's a ton of them.
Oh yeah, so many, like 6. All right, so we got let's see. We'll start with Crush and Lobo number 5, which I know Kat and I've really been enjoying this book.
It's such a solid book. It's always reliable. I think that's the best way to put it. It's never,
That is a
I
really
won't say
good
it's like
book.
a number 1 book, but it's
Right.
reliable. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
that was fun. I think that's the most I could say about it.
It's been consistently good. There's not been a bad issue yet. It's just fun.
Exactly.
It's a fun book to read. Then we have the Me You Love in the Dark number 3, which are you reading this at all?
I am reading it.
You're just not.
Yeah,
I'm anticipating it, but I'm reading it.
I told her to read it. And
Right.
I
couldn't remember.
didn't say it was the best thing in the world, but she did say she liked it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I am enjoying it. I'm curious to see where it ends up going, especially I don't know if I would continue if it was an ongoing book, but since it's a miniseries, I am very interested to see how it's going to end.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's better suited for a mini, but I still want to find out what this creature is. After that.
Oh God,
we
yeah.
saw that glimpse of him. Yeah.
And what this book's about, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, obviously it's a romance, but like, what's the full scope?
Right. Yeah. Where does it end? Where does this character go?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what's so good about it. It's the mystery of it. That's what's fun.
Absolutely. Then all of our favorite, Firepower number 16. Another consistently good book.
Interesting about this book too, because obviously with the cliffhanger, you thought you'd follow the parents, but from the cover, it looks like it's going to be the kids, or maybe they'll do half and half. The kids are still involved; they're still telling their own story, which I'm super excited for, because that's what this book needs. Is like when it went totally onto that island, I'm like, go back to suburbia. So if the kids are still in suburbia and they're telling the island story, I think that's great. That's a good balance.
Yeah,
and they could grow; they could be their own character.
Yeah, I mean, long game. Follow the daughter as she develops this power too, and stuff like that. Yeah, going forward. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
A firepower.
That's what makes this book is the family. If you did not have the family in this book, it would not be interesting.
I wouldn't be reading it.
Right. It's the family bond that makes you want to read that book, because there's such a tight-knit family. So if something was to happen to one of those family members, it would be devastating. And see, so this goes back to Spencer's run on Amazing Spider-Man, right? You took time to develop these characters, and even though these characters haven't been around that long, there's been such a focus, and you see that tight bond between them. If you were to lose one of those, it would hit you emotionally.
Yeah.
Where Harry is just running around going, where are we at? Where I'm a clone? That's just my
like Harry died for the 5th time.
Right. He never was even hanging around with Spider-Man in that issue, and it's just like, oh, I'm dead.
It wasn't even the real Harry. I totally agree with that. So now, speaking of Marvel, we got a trifecta of Marvel books here. We got Captain Marvel number 33.
I'm excited for that. That was a good cliffhanger with Miss Marvel. I'm interested in like the full scope of that story.
Yeah,
it looks cool.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully she got to Miss Marvel in time. We'll see.
I think she did, but we'll see how.
Yeah. So Dark Ages number 2. I know we all were really impressed with that first issue.
Yes. First issue. I'm so excited for issue 2.
See how they kind of live in this world now. We've seen how the world, how it became that way. Now we see how it functions.
Exactly. And finally, going back to all that stuff that we were just talking about, Amazing Spider-Man number 75.
Yeah.
Jumping on point, right?
Jumping on point. Can't wait.
I am definitely excited, but cautiously. Because who the hell knows what this is going to bring.
Exactly.
Listen, for the next 25 issues or so, I would not have high expectations for this title. They're pumping out these books to get to 900.
Yeah.
And you would hope that at issue 900, that's when you're going to get your new creative team.
Yeah.
That's true. That is true. The reason I'm not as excited is because it's not about Peter, it's about Ben. And like
Right.
he's fine. Like I just like Peter Parker a lot more. If it was them sharing the title, I'd feel a bit differently. But because Peter doesn't seem to be Spider-Man in this book, I don't know how to feel about it.
See, my
Right.
whole thing is, you know how I said like Peter Parker's like on death's door or whatever it was. That's what I thought. We still get that issue 76 where Mary Jane is on the cover and Peter Parker is in a hospital bed. Why is that
hopefully be
cover
next
exist?
issue.
Huh?
Hopefully next issue we find out. Maybe he gets hurt next issue, question mark?
Well, I got the synopsis for issue 76. If you guys
We're
want to,
ready.
the unthinkable has happened. Zeb Wells and Patrick Gleason will remind you why you love and hate comics.
Yep. It's going to be something that's going to piss you off.
Yep.
Oh no.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. I guess I think it's a larger issue tomorrow. I think it's multiple stories. It might be all the writers telling a story tomorrow. I think. Let's see. Issue 75. Let's see how much money it is.
Right.
If it's more than $4. Let's see. It is doesn't have a price tag. 52 pages and it's $6. So it's probably gonna be a larger book.
Still bigger, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, and it's back to 3 times a month.
Yeah, it's every month
Yay.
basically. Yep. That's why they have so many people writing it.
Mm-hmm.
Not happy about that.
No.
I again love my Spider-Man, but I would like to miss it a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, you should be because Peter Parker's not going to be there all the time.
That's true
So
too.
technically, it's
We're
a
gonna get
different
a
book.
lot of Ben.
You're getting Ben Reilly 3 times a week.
But maybe they'll be like, oh, Ben's 1 week, Peter's another week. Like I wouldn't mind that because then it feel like a different book each week, and
That
I
would be
will
cool.
be okay.
Yeah.
That's
That would
true.
be good. I just hope it's a good version of Ben Reilly and not the crappy one we've been getting for the past few years.
That too. I do. From what it sounds like they're trying to go heroic Ben Reilly.
Yeah.
Not what was the
Evil.
clone
Ben Reilly.
one?
Yeah.
Where he
Yeah.
cloned everybody.
Jackal. Yeah,
The
new
Jackal one,
Yeah.
That was a
See,
lot.
that's how Harry Osborn lives. There's another clone running around somewhere that didn't melt, and he's like running around. Forgot who he was.
Mhm.
Remember when Ned came back? That was interesting.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah,
They
Ned.
did nothing with that. It was like,
Mhm.
okay, Betty's pregnant.
Yeah. It was like,
Made
oh, it's
that
the real
funny
Ned.
face
No. Yeah.
Oh God, what a
So
run!
that's it, right? That's all the books that are coming
That's
out
it.
this week, and
That's it.
so yeah, we'll see what happens, guys. So you guys have anything else that you want to say before we close out tonight's show?
Just got another Kickstarter coming up. Crazy enough, October 18th is the Slice of Life issue 1 Kickstarter. It's about a gritty anime protagonist who comes to life and falls in love with a high school cheerleader. So there's a lot of different genres going on in there. I think there's something there for everybody. So hopefully you guys could go check it out. This is a great jumping on point, or you can read it for free on Webtoon. But we're actually doing really well with the followers. It's only been up for 2 days. We're almost to like 300 followers. So
Nice.
that's really cool. So hopefully you guys could go check it out. Other than that, just check out my reviews tomorrow. I feel like there's always more to talk about, but that's all that's important right now.
Yeah, for me, I actually also have a Kickstarter coming up. I submitted the page today.
Nice.
For In the Land of the Dragon. It's a cyberpunk story about a mercenary saving a baby that could change the fate of the world. So that is upcoming probably towards the end of the month or maybe at the beginning of November. It just depends. But yeah, keep your ears and eyes peeled on that. I'll be talking more about that in the weeks to come.
Awesome. And then for me, guys, I have my normal weekly videos always coming out. I got my my covers of the week, my top 10 most anticipated covers for comic books for next week. Tomorrow I'll do a comic book haul, but unfortunately it's going to be from another comic book shop. So I'm going to a shop that my comic shop recommended to me, since my shop's not getting their books
Wow,
in again.
that's crazy.
Yeah,
Wow,
So I'm gonna go to this place. It's called like Banff Comics and Coffee. Like they have like it's a coffee shop and a comic
Oh,
shop
that's cool.
together.
Nice.
So I'll be
That's-
checking that place out. It's about
Dang it.
25 minutes away from my house or something like that.
That was kind of mine and Lisa's idea. We were thinking about doing like if we ever opened a shop, which is just like one of those daydream kind of things, not
Right.
something we're actually planning or anything. But we were thinking about doing like a board game comic shop, kind of thing. So
Right.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's what's going on. And then just expect all the other weekly videos that I do each and every week on the channel. So I
We
guess
have
with
one-
that being,
we have more,
we got one more super chat.
before we
Yeah.
go. Yeah. So new type asks, final Ms. Marvel question: should the next writer address the traitor storyline, perhaps retcon it out, or is it best to ignore it? I say best to ignore it. Is my
That's
what I was
my
gonna say
take too. Yeah, just move on.
So now we can wrap the show.
All right. So now that's a wrap, everybody. So guys, thank you so much for watching this week's episode. Stay tuned for next week's episode, and we'll see how the comics turn out. And of course, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to our channels, Comic Book Weekly and Comic Book Corner 2.0. Don't forget to hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications. Make sure you turn on all those notifications, of course, and then follow us on our wonderful social media. You can follow us on Facebook, follow Kat on Twitter, follow us on Instagram. You can follow us
me on Twitter. I need more followers.
Yeah. And so hopefully
Kat
we
on
can get
Twitter.
this stream. We can get this stream on Twitter as well. And you guys will check it out on there. So we'll have it on my Facebook group page. We'll have it on Twitter. We'll have it on YouTube. Man, we're just going everywhere. We're just blowing up with all 50 of our viewers. So, guys, thank you so much for watching, and let's do the wave, and we'll see you all next week. Take care, everyone.